Hey, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Good morning. Happy brunch. Vasasnaga. This is your Sensei Bob here. Welcome you aboard to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Bob here. I am your grad here to tell you a story. And today is the first sunny day of the last week of rainy days. Now, rain's good, and you live in a rainforest, you know what rain is. And it doesn't rain all the time, but it rains most of the time. So it's okay, right? But I had a little bit of petrol, and so I came to where my doctors are and tried to get them all to take care of me. And it's the bureaucratic shuffle. And it's okay. The thing is not to get upset about it. If you can get 80% of what you need done, that's a big success, right? So that's okay. And because I realize every morning I wake up, it's a miracle that I'm not dead. So they want to do heart surgery and all kinds of things, and I may or may not do it. I have no money, and praise Jesus, the PayPal actually works. Somebody sent me some cash, and thank you very much for that. Right? So all the rest of you can also, come on. Daddy needs a new pair of shoes, right? And it'd be nice if somebody would subscribe some more and, give some thumbs up there and make some comments. So this is a chat. It doesn't do anything unless you chat. Ugh. Instead of just, doing this all the time. Let's see what's on there. What's on the bug? So, what do you think about the Russian and
There's one simple exotic herb that anyone can use to flush out nail fungus almost overnight.
Oh yeah.
What do you make of what you've heard from Vladimir Putin this morning?
Well, if you listen to his whole speech, he's basically threatening to liquidate or kill Wagner troops, and I guess that would include Prigozhin. And so this is now he's laid down the gauntlet. There's no negotiation. It's either Putin or Prigozhin, and the next hours and days will determine whether Prigozhin can create the momentum with his 25,000 troops, whether the Russian military will lay down their arms, whether they will successfully kill Prigozhin.
And now we know that wasn't true. 18 hours later, what happened was a deal was made. And both those guys didn't meet up with each other. Both those guys went into hiding, Platt and Bergersian. And they're still not known of whereabouts. So who's going to come flying out of a 16-story window next? I don't know. In my view, this is just more of the whatchamacallit, scripted theater of this war, right? And all the wars going on around and everything that's going on because, the mercenaries. Mercenaries have been around forever, right? And what's always interesting about the mercenaries, they'll fight for the despot, but then they usually end up killing him and taking over. So it's more of the same. And the mercenaries, they are ruled by the golden rule. Whoever has the gold rules. So again, you're seeing a very interesting thing play out. And all of these things are mirrors. So you're going to see something similar happen in the United States. But my take on what's going to happen in the United States is Kamala is not going to be vice president. She will go to the thingamajig, and there'll be a back very similar to Harry Truman. Harry Truman didn't expect to be vice president, under FDR. It was a guy who had been, picked to be president, who had been FDR's vice president for 8 years. And this guy was well connected, the dude. And then all of a sudden, Harry Truman's there, right? And then all of a sudden, 3 months later, FDR eats his gun. He didn't die of a brain hemorrhage. The back of his head was gone. Either someone stuck the gun in his mouth and blew his brains out in the back of his head, or he did it himself, right? Because he was pretty much knew what was going on, right? He made all the deals, right? He knew about the reptiles, you know. So if you go a couple shows back, I put a bit of a YouTube called Above Majestic, and that was David Wilcox and Corey Good, right? And again, don't believe anything I say or anything on this channel or anything on any channel. But if it rings true, if any of it, see, it's not about a singular narrative being the story. It's about the threads in it, right? Goebbels said the best way to have propaganda is 60% truth, 40% your narrative, right? And so that's when Dick Cheney said, "You don't want to see a city go up in a mushroom cloud," right? He had no evidence that and we, Saddam Hussein, who was our a boy in Iraq, we put him there. We gave him money. We gave him weapons. He did what when we wanted to go into that corner of Iraq. He let us precipitate, Operation Desert Storm. Right, that's what it was about. The Germans and the French had found some archaeological information. They had found Looking Glass, and the Americans had their own version, but they didn't want anybody else to have one, so they went and took it. Right? And so, how do you get the Third and First Army into Iraq? You have a false flag, right? And you have the player, Saddam Hussein. And so, we went in, took what we want. The only time we went into Baghdad was to go into the museum and take all the car keys from the exhibits. And it's nothing is as it seems to be. Let's play you a nice little something or other. Do 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 do. Dooby doo doo doo. Let's see. See if I can read. Okay, so it's this one. We'll give this a shot. See what it does.
Hi there, and welcome to a special episode of After School. My name is Ben, and I produce the Uncharted X YouTube channel. I'm a student and fan mysteries, as well as the geological evidence for cataclysm. In today's episode, we'll explore some of the anomalies that don't fit into the mainstream story of our past, and make the case for rewriting the very beginnings of our history. I hope you enjoy the video. When it comes to the realms of academia and science, battles are fought whenever new ideas or new evidence emerges to challenge the mainstream understanding of the times. Bloodless wars, but wars nonetheless, are slowly waged across many domains of knowledge, paper by paper and book by book. At stake are the prizes, the label of expertise, the tenure of education, and the authority that derives from establishment. Some of these disputes are precise, using the scientific method of hypothesis, experiment, and result to produce concrete conclusions, to unhorse old ideas, and to move our understanding forward. Such as that which occurs in the disciplines of biology, physics, or chemistry, for example. Other disciplines are less precise and rely on the interpretation of incomplete sets of evidence, the weaving together of data and observation, as happens in fields like archaeology or paleontology. One battle that's been heating up considerably over the last decade is the fight for the foundations of human history itself. I'm not talking about modern history or even what we refer to as ancient history, at least as we know it in our textbooks today. I'm talking about what happened before this, the ground that the tale of our past is built upon and the basis for all of recorded human history. And that is the timeline of our evolution as a species, our rise from the Stone Age and into the era of civilization. It is these older aspects of our past that seem to be in an ever-increasing state of dispute. The arguments being made are legitimate. They are coming from many different vectors and many different disciplines of science. Many arguments are based on discoveries that have only been made in recent years, and collectively they're making the case for a re-evaluation of the story of our past ever stronger. Everyone is aware of this story to a greater or lesser degree, and in its most basic form, it goes a little something like this. A while ago, we humans, Homo sapiens, evolved and emerged directly into the Stone Age, fiddling with sticks and rocks and contentedly hunter-gathering our days away. It's here that we spend the vast majority of our time on Earth. Tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years. Then, all of a sudden, we get the bright idea to team up, raise some forts, build some walls, create some gods, and make some rules. And then, voila, there's civilization. The ancient Sumerians kick us off, then Egypt, Babylon, the Greeks, the Romans, the Mongols, China's great dynasties, and all the rest. Soon we're playing with swords and castles and serfs and slaves. Now it's time to up our painting game, and we have ourselves a renaissance. Someone observes that steam expands, which is still the basis of our entire economy. Even nuclear power stations are just big kettles for boiling water and making steam expand. We begin a love affair with gunpowder and money. We put a meter on electrons and sell them to everyone. And the Industrial Revolution begins the inexorable rise of modern technology. Then, all of a sudden, hello, here we all are, intangibly connected to this thing called the internet, watching thousands of tiny flashing pixels on some device of unimaginable complexity, while sipping a latte, wearing sneakers and synthetic clothing in our paved-over jungle, and mostly doing so as if it was all perfectly normal. The idea that we are all here as the direct result of an unbroken straight line of human progress, coming from the Stone Age, this is one of the foundations upon which our modern human identity is formed. Yet it's this very foundational concept that is under siege. The evidence that our history is longer and much more complex just continues to stack up. The narrative that this new evidence weaves is frankly alarming. It tells a tale of unimaginable destruction, a tale of the rise and fall of unknown yet undeniably mighty civilizations, of advanced technologies that were created, used, and then lost to us. A cycle of death and rebirth on a scale that is beyond anything contained within our current version of history. A version that, in the light of all this new evidence, can simply be considered but the latest revolution of the cosmic hamster wheel of human civilizations. Let's put a few examples of this new evidence into some context. Here's a New Scientist article from 2006, which was, if you're at all like me and in complete denial about getting older, shockingly 16 years of human evolution, the mainstream story of history as it was taught in 2006. So let's make a graph and talk about us kids. Around 195,000 years ago, we emerge onto the scene and into the Stone Age. Here we stay for many tens of thousands of years until we start eating mushrooms, having visionary experiences, drawing cave art, burying our dead, creating symbolic and abstract concepts, also called the Great Leap Forward, which was some 50,000 years ago, around the same time that humans first colonized Australia. Then, roughly 12,000 years ago, and still globally in the Stone Age, mind you, modern humans finally reached the Americas. The Stone Age eventually comes to an end only a scant 6,000 years ago from now, when the first true civilization that leads directly to us begins with the ancient Sumerians in Mesopotamia, which was mostly in what's now modern-day Iraq. Now, let's look at some of the new evidence since 2006 and how it should be affecting this timeline. A new find of human remains in Morocco made us instantly more than 30% older than we first thought, pushing the earliest date of our species back to some 300,000 years ago. New DNA evidence analysed from Neanderthal remains estimates our split with them from a common ancestor as far back as 800,000 years ago. Not only that, but discoveries of entirely new species of hominids like Homo floresiensis or the Denisovans is proving that our origins as a species are much more complex than we had ever believed. These hominids weren't simple, dumb creatures, and with finds like the Denisovan jade bracelet, a 40,000-year-old artifact that includes a drill hole, indicates that they may well have been as intelligent, organised, and capable of understanding abstract concepts as our own species. As our timeline extends further back, it also means that we coexisted with our cousins for a very long time. I believe there is much more to find here. New archaeological work has smashed our understandings of human timelines in the Americas with digs like the Cerruti Mastodon site in San Diego, or the Bluefish Caves, showing that humans may well have been in North America as much as 130,000 years ago, and were certainly here 25 to 30,000 years ago, which is much longer than those dates claimed by the Clovis First doctrine of archaeology, that for so long has strangled open-minded research efforts in North America. Not only this, but DNA linkages between Aboriginal Australians and the natives of South America, linkages that don't seem to exist in the peoples of Central or North America, is challenging the entire Northern Land Bridge theory of the diaspora of humanity.
So what he's getting at is what the scholastics say is true, and basically if you say anything other than what they say, you're stupid, you have no credibility, get out. Right? That's what the scholastic was telling me the other night when I was going on about, Hail Hydra, right? And he just constantly, that's all you can you gotta be logical, read the textbook, Okay. So you ready to read the textbook, kids? You're gonna take the blue pill and just ease into being a ever-ready battery for all of this, gonna be cannon fodder forever, gonna be a serf forever, So I've been, last 10, 15 years, I've been under medical assistance, but it's very often mediocre at best. Open heart surgery, I don't know. I'd just rather roll the dice and die, or roll the dice, have a seizure and be a vegetable. I don't know. I'm weighing it out. But I'm not going to be a stupid moron and not investigate all aspects, which I will do. But it's an interesting dynamic, So, so what goodies did you get there?
Chicken?
They do that pretty good here.
Yeah, they do.
Pretty much everything they do is pretty good here. Anyway, nobody wants to chat, talk about what's going on. We'll go back to the after school narrative.
Findings suggest that large populations of people, groups large enough to leave genetic indicators, crossed the Pacific Ocean long before we were ever supposedly capable of such feats. And when it comes to civilization, the story gets even more intriguing, with many new finds pushing our supposed start date back further and further. We had first thought that civilization arose some 6,000 years ago, but the largest megalithic site in the world, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, is now known to have been deliberately buried some 12,000 years ago, likely after thousands of years of use. The redating of the Great Sphinx in Egypt by Professor of Geology Dr. Robert Schoch indicates that this structure is at least as old as Göbekli Tepe, some 12,000 years, and is possibly significantly older. A massive man-made pyramid-like structure was recently discovered in Indonesia at a site called Gunung Padang. It has had carbon dating of organic remains that were pulled from chambers inside the structure that pushes the earliest start date of civilization possibly as far back as 25,000 years ago. It's not just these new findings when it comes to the reasons for a re-evaluation of history. There is a whole other category of evidence in this debate. That category is that in many ways, our current interpretation of history simply does not make sense when you take a close and careful look at it. Contradictions and mysteries abound in our story of history. They attract the attention of interested and open-minded people, despite the efforts of academia and in many cases.
Said, open-minded people. There aren't any in academia.
Just declare that no such mysteries exist. These contradictions are often South America. Linkages that don't seem to exist in the peoples of Central or North America is challenging the entire Northern land bridge theory of the diaspora of humanity. These findings suggest that large populations of people, groups large enough to leave genetic indicators, crossed the Pacific Ocean long before we were ever supposedly capable of such feats. And when it comes to civilization, the story gets even more intriguing, with many new finds pushing our supposed start date back further and further. We had first thought that civilization arose some 6,000 years ago, but the largest megalithic site in the world, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, is now known to have been deliberately buried some 12,000 years ago, likely after thousands of years of use. The redating of the Great Sphinx in Egypt by Professor of Geology Dr. Robert Schoch indicates that this structure is at least as old as Göbekli Tepe, some 12,000 years, and is possibly significantly older. A massive man-made pyramid-like structure was recently discovered in Indonesia at a site called Gunung Padang. It has had carbon dating of organic remains that were pulled from chambers inside the structure that pushes the earliest start date of civilization possibly as far back as 25,000 years ago. It's not just these new findings when it comes to the reasons for a re-evaluation of history. There is a whole other category of evidence in this debate. That category is that in many ways, our current interpretation of history simply does not make sense when you take a close and careful look at it. Contradictions and mysteries abound in our story of history. They attract the attention of interested and open-minded people, despite the efforts of academia, who, in many cases, just declare that no such mysteries exist. These contradictions are often hidden in plain sight. They're in our textbooks, and they're in the astonishing megalithic evidence that is left to us in the ancient places of the world, demonstrated nowhere better than those in Egypt. Just consider the Old Kingdom period, which, according to Egyptologists, arose directly from the primitive Stone Age and whose people did not have the ability to quarry granite. Why then is the Old Kingdom so rich in incredible granite structures that have never seen their match since? How did they build such massive granite artifacts and architecture without the ability to quarry or work this stone? Why were the huge megalithic pyramids, like those at Giza, the earliest pyramids to be built? And this is to say nothing of the mind-bending precision that is evident in this work from the oldest period of Egyptian history. Precision is found in the smallest of objects, like the thousands of lathe-turned exquisite stone jars, to the largest of objects, like the Great Pyramid, which even today still ranks amongst the most precisely made structures on the planet. When you look closely, you will find the obvious signs and markings of advanced machining and tools that are not found in the archaeological record. After the Old Kingdom, Egypt kept on building pyramids and they kept on making artwork, but they never came close to reaching the same technical ability that they supposedly did in the very earliest part of their civilization. Ask yourself, is this really how civilizations work? Do they peak instantly and then degrade over time? Another contradiction, this time South America. Why are there three distinct styles of architecture present in Peruvian ancient sites? Three styles that are wildly different in their technological sophistication. Why are these three styles always found in the same order, with the largest and...
So go look at the YouTube channel. after school. Right? He has a lot of stuff. And it goes to the fact that we're being lied to and really have no real reason for being here except being taken advantage of. Oh. So, do you live here in Boone?
I do not.
Where are you from?
Vanderbilt.
Oh, Bannerell. What's the name of that college here? Lee's McGregor or something or other. So that's Angelo land.
Yeah, at least three is college. I work in a artisanal restaurant.
Which one?
Artisanal?
I know, but which one? What's it called?
Artisanal.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought it was just a style of cuisine.
But it's been there 8 years.
Does Angelo own it?
Bill Green.
Bill Green.
He grew up in Avery County.
So do you know Angelo and the family?
You do.
And he's got his fingers in everything. Kind of reminds me of Las Vegas. Come to some place where nobody is
Yeah.
and take over.
Yeah. So
And people call that progress. Do you think that's progress?
the ski place up there, he doesn't have any part of that.
No. But all of the housing, the big concrete mausoleum on top of the mountain, all of that.
So any part of that.
What do they call it? The Eagle's Nest or something or other?
Well, Sugar Top is the one on Sugar Mountain.
Right.
He was there, so
But he's
Sugar
got,
Top is the one that's so ugly.
right. Beyond ugly.
I live across the street from it. It was beautiful up there at the top of the mountain, but they didn't do any favors with that place, for sure.
No.
It's a shame.
Well, it's a representation of out of control capitalism. Profit at any
Well,
reason or belief.
I lived in San Francisco and Napa Valley for a long time. I would say Avery County, quite out of control there.
Well, but you know what I'm talking about. Because I've been here 20 years and I've been studying it since 1968. First time so I went through all those little towns in 1968. In 1974, I came and lectured at App State here when there were only 800 students. And the omnipresent smell in this town was honeysuckle. And now it's diesel. When there was only 2-lane roads, not the 8 lanes going in every which direction.
20,000 people now. Not big.
Yeah. Just in the school. In Boone, I would say there's probably 90,000 people.
Less than that. It's still a small town. It's a college.
Well, it's also limited by its geography.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of places to go.
Have you been down to Asheville? So I was in Asheville.
Just one.
I did a ethnography on the rich people house, Biltmore, and Asheville was stuck in amber. There was nobody there, nothing going on. Banks wouldn't lend any money. They didn't build anything, right? And it was full of interesting artists. But I got this kid to do an ethnography on that place because the federal government and the state government realized what was coming and wanted Biltmore House to be the anchor of tourism, right? And I did that, and then I kind of got the keys to kingdom. I did another ethnography on the downtown city, County Plaza. And then the Cherokee over there in Cherokee near Waynesville got a hold of us to get their lineage in line so they could get on the roll, right? So they could get gambling, basically. And so I was right there at the foot of all going on. And now, so I left there in '96 and really never went back. And I still have loads of friends here. So I went for a friend of mine, tour at Warren Wilson, was head of the art department for years, and he retired, had a big show, and I went to that. And over in Weaverville had a population of 900 when I was there. Now it's like 70,000. A whole, the 40 and 26. It wasn't even 26. It was 19 and 17. It was a little squiggly road going up the mountain, not even a highway. And I was involved in doing, getting everyone on board for that. And when they put that in, it was 4 lanes, right? I went there a couple of months ago for this opening. It's 16 lanes.
Wow.
And that hill, when you come out, it goes up over into where Michaelville and Little Switzerland is, and Mount Mitchell over here. It's just covered in houses that are like that far away from each other, right? And it's never. I was there for a week, and I went out with some other friends, and we were over at this like artisanal restaurant. There are a lot of those in Asheville, and we were in a place on the other side of Weaverville. We were coming back, and 26 was still a parking lot at like 1 in the morning. And they're widening the road. Have you been out to the airport? Pretty much everything from the defunct power station that's no longer there, and the river is. And they just keep every time they add 2 lanes. Next year they end up. It's just like unbelievable. And that's what this place will be. No one said Asheville could ever be what it is now.
I don't think this place will ever grow that big. It's too hard to get around.
Yeah, there are.
And higher elevation, so the bush snow in the winter.
Well, Asheville is parts of it. Like I said, you get close to Mount Mitchell. That's the tallest mountain other than Mount Washington on the East Coast. So they have some elevation.
But Asheville itself is like 2,300 feet.
Yeah.
Or 3,300.
Yes. And
Benrock is 4,000.
right.
Benrock itself is 3,700.
Right.
When you turn right on 105, that's the Eastern Continental Divide.
Right there.
4,100.
Yeah. And then you go from there over to what's the name of that? Kingsport, right, where all the chemical factories are. And that's like the Sawtooth Mountain accordion. It's like up in that, like 321. It's like, forget about it. And now the same guys who took over Vanderbilt have bought up the whole end of Watauga Lake. And they're just tearing it apart. They put 800 lots on a mountainside that has no water in the ground. They sold lots to people that won't be able to get any drinking water anytime soon, unless it's bought. Yeah. So it's just, and all the roads out there were built, back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s to be little farm roads. Now they're gigantic. All the roads are sliding off the hill. It's pretty freaking amazing. And that county has no building department. So it's the Wild West. You can do whatever the frick you want.
There's a lot of building going on over there.
Yeah.
And roads are always being worked.
Yes. So it's.
And still 2 lanes. If you're out there, there's no way to.
Yeah, because of the geography, period. Until they get teleportation, and they got it. They're just not rolling it out. But no, we always lived in strange times. So where did you grow up?
Virginia.
Oh, what part?
That's not Richmond.
Oh.
I lived in Charlottesville for a long time.
Yeah.
It's a nice town.
Did you go to school there? Did you go to college there?
Yeah, I went to UVA.
Yeah.
I studied in college.
Oh, really? What flavor?
I studied cultural anthropology, kind of mostly structuralism, but I studied with some people who are post-structuralists, and actually had a class with a couple, I forget their name now, it's been a long, long time, but they did a class on Appalachian folklore, and they had done a lot of research into folk tales and oral histories and that sort of thing.
You listen to Inside Appalachia? Radio. That's on ETS. Do you listen to ETSU? You should. It is probably the best public radio station
Oh, really?
because it's not. Most of them are either this or that. They try and do everybody. They have a little bit of everything. They're not totally wacko right wing or wacko left wing. They really do it very good, and they have great music on Saturdays and Sundays.
Right.
You like old country music?
Sure.
Yeah. So you went to. So I'm a psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologist because to understand any of it, you got to understand all of it. Because if you're just a cultural anthropologist, you're like looking at it there, and you're not looking at that person's worldview through their psychology or through their like social, what sexual predilection, what job they have, blah blah blah. Then the next one, where grandma came from. Then they don't take it hard forensically. Because anthropology is one of those ologies that if you're not looking at the threads, all you are is a scholastic reading a textbook. Did you ever? It's a black woman who went to school with Margaret Mead, and Margaret Mead's buddy who went to New Mexico and studied sex habits. Nora Thurston, Nora something. Thurston. She wrote a book, "The Gods Are Watching." She was brilliant. I met her when I was a teenager in Jensen Beach, and she was a maid to the lady in that house. I mean, she did not. She wrote, Margaret Mead said, "This woman's way smarter than me," and she ended up barely being able to pay her rent and having to be a maid at 80. Yeah, well, that's America. That's what Banner Elk is. It's Anteloveville. Because we, as a culture, should have the most amazing culture because we are a salad bowl. We're not a melting pot. We have all this diversity, and we're not embracing it. That's what's the largest maker of money in our GDP? Culture. And that's everything. Art, TV, all of that. That makes more money than oil. And it's something that is sustainable, right?
A lot of people in this country are only interested in agriculture.
And what they very narrowly think is their best interest.
I think that's universal policy.
Not really. There are a lot of people who think of the we in me.
Yeah, but taken as a whole.
It's only advertised such. When you go and there are more people thinking about the we and me than the advertised narrative of selfish, consumption. Right? It's
I think everywhere you go, you'll find people who are generous. But you'll find that when you take a large group of people, it's hard for that group to look beyond itself.
and for that reason, they've been programmed to do it.
Yeah.
When people can get outside the programming, they're generous. So that's
That's the root of patriotism.
yeah.
Is if you want to be able to get a whole society to mobilize, fight in a war,
Right.
then you have to get them to not think critically about it.
Right, about it, or anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
But as we get further and further into the future, mobilizing a whole nation to fight in war makes less and less sense.
That's why we're inventing robots to do
And
it.
fighting in wars that don't even fought.
There's never
People are
been
still programmed now.
there's never been a war that was worth fighting.
Here in Europe in the 400s,
But
You know,
well, if you're in Europe,
mass armies that sit on you, you want your people to be able to fight back.
well, or the ones who actually survived that were the ones who knew how to get out of harm's way
Yeah.
and not get involved, right? And let those armies that were on their front lawn kill each other. And that's what Ukraine and Russia is. It's these two guys that really shouldn't. They're more like family.
Yeah.
Right? So it's no, it's
Well, and they were so deeply integrated,
right.
even 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, a lot of Russian people live in Ukraine.
Well, Stalin took 60% of, basically killed 60% of the Ukrainians, starved them to death, and brought Russians in there.
Yeah.
And he took the Russians that he didn't like, but he kind of needed, so he just put them over there. So until he needed them. And what's really strange, look at all these countries, like Russia is a good example. They have been, you ever heard the term of loyal opposition? Russia's always been our best enemy. We never had a war with them. Yeah. And all during the Cold War, we were making sure they were staying alive by feeding them, even though they should have been able to feed themselves. And conversely, they were selling us all of these resources. Because, man, they are the treasure trove of easy to get, locally nearby resources. And so it's, when you really start looking at things close, did you ever see that picture of Stalin, FDR, and Churchill and Tehran? And they got smiles on their faces. And the generals behind, you can see them like going up to Benjamins to each other. You know, it's like, and then the guys in the suits signing the contracts, you know? And so, and it's, the problem is, guys like you, your children go die on the battlefield. I mean, no one said anything about the 20-year wars that we just had. Yeah. And Biden turned it off like a light switch. When he did that, I said, okay, we're going to have a war someplace else.
Yeah. Well, there's always guns to be sold. Where you go.
Well, that's the most profitable.
Yeah.
Not sustainable, profitable.
I have to head out. I'm Jeff.
Jeff, if I had my other code, I'd give it to you. But I have a nice YouTube called Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Owlbomb. You got your little phone on you?
Yeah.
Why don't you go ping that?
I'll check it out.
Dreamy Dreamland.
Sure.
Because if you don't put it in there now, you'll forget about it. Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Owlbomb.
All right.
And it's a chat. I have, you can jump in, but most people watch it like wallpaper. They don't really involve themselves in it. They watch it later on at their own discretion and have it in the background instead of the radio. So you see my picture?
Yes.
Did you subscribe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you, Jeff. And where is your restaurant? I'll come visit it.
It's Dobbins Road in Monroe.
So we're on the.
Dobbins Road.
How far is that downtown, or is that?
2 miles from downtown.
Is it near the Shell gas station?
It's Dobbins Road is it peels off of Tynecastle Highway.
Which is where you turn.
About a mile before you get to Monroe.
Okay. Oh, that where the restaurant stuff is? Where that Thai restaurant is?
It's closer to Monroe.
Okay. And is it on the road or is it off?
It's off the road. It's on Dobbins Road back up in the hills.
Oh, okay. I definitely will have to come see you. When do you feed people? What time? Is it like from 11 to 11 or?
No, we're open 5 to 10.
What days aren't you open?
We're open Tuesday through Saturday, reservation only. It's like we don't.
A high end.
Yeah, we don't have a bar or anything like that.
So am I not dressed appropriately?
It would need a little collared shirt.
Yeah.
For sure.
Not bad, eh? Well, this has a collar.
Yes, exactly. Have a good one.
Later, Jeff. I don't have my reading glasses. Oh, here we go. Who's this guy who just at Gracie Carey Mission. Oh, hello, everyone in the house. Oh, Gracie, you've been on there. Hello, host. Hello, hello. So, basically, I guess our story is about history and human nature, and what are we doing with it, right? Where are we going with it? Very good to, here we go. Capitalizing poor yes. Well, they're telling me I need open heart surgery. They're gonna have to really convince me, because I already tried it once, and I kind of insulted them with that they didn't do anything you're supposed to do. So now they're going back and doing all the things you're supposed to be doing. So anyway, and I am of two schools. If they can show me all the evidence, I'm part of that discipline. They can show me the ultrasounds and the CAT scans and the this and the that and the chemistry that, oh, yeah, you do need this. Okay. If they're going to pay for it, okay, because I have zip money. I haven't, someone threw some loose change into my PayPal, so it works. So anybody wants to, throw some cash into the PayPal, that would be appreciated. Let's see, how we doing? Oh, I got about 20 minutes left before I have to get out of here because the battery, we're at 30%. Wallpaper, open heart surgery, diet and exercise. Well, that's why I'm still alive. I lost 260 pounds. Yes, my diet is pretty good. But what's interesting, I used to get $200 in food stamps so I could buy pretty healthy food. Now they gave me $68. Right? So just bite. Baby aspirin. Yes, I do all that, I take that. And so anyway, no, my blood pressure, so I went to my doctor today. My blood pressure was 108 over 60, right? My cholesterol is extraordinarily good, My weight is 210 for 6 foot, Um, a week from Thursday, they're going to laser my eyeballs. I'll be having lasers coming out of my eyeball. So, it's all good, right? And I had a very nice conversation with that gentleman. And he's awake, but he's, wants to just bury his head, right? And the majority of the population, the majority of humanity, way they're wired to be good. It's people who are either totally asleep, totally damaged, um, or totally scared shitless that they don't want to step up and be their better self. Consciously aware. I am consciously aware. I am. People don't want that. Consciously intent. I am. Consciously intent. I am. No, they don't. I saw, um, you know, the Wrangled bunch. Colonel Sanders, his father, Grandpa Cockroach, slaves, and it was like I was up meditating, and they kind of came up in all their vehicles, and Colonel, it's great news. The one guy who knew what he was doing has split. He couldn't take it anymore, so he split. So that leaves these jokers who have some pretty, big jobs of steel and concrete, and basically, they're using lolly columns, right? And they got all these parts, and they were looking at them, and these plates that connect, that you use as spacers in lolly columns, have a little bend to them, and they're there. These are, no, they are done on purpose because it enables you to put that one last little plate in, and then let the weight, because you're supposed to have um, the structure that you're laying down on these lolly columns, be able to jack it up. I used to move houses, right? I used to, back in '84 in Long Island, I bought a whole big farm that was right on the Great South Bay, right? and right across a little stream from Southampton. But that farm was like where the poor people lived, and there was Southampton. And on the deed, it said I could build a bridge to the and have an egress and entrance into my property into the rich people's neighborhood. Right. That's what I said. Boy, this is worth $1 zillion just that. It was 100 acres on the beach, and Long Island back in those days was more like New England because they could just take you across the Long Island Sound to Rhode Island or Massachusetts or any of those places over there, and it was only 10 miles. Whereas if they wanted to drive all the way around, that's like 300 miles. So it was back in the day more New England, and it was also where because it had this inlet called the South Bay, it had um, where the pirates came in. So that's what I was going to call it, Pirates Bay, and it was in Mauritius, East Mauritius, and anyway, so I was moving because there was a fire bug, and I was dating a lady who was a volunteer fireman, and she was also a historian and an architect, and so she said you should the state will give you these buildings, and so I had built this one house where I took the old structure down and milled all the wood and built a brand spanking new building, but all of the things that you saw on the inside and the exterior, all the beams, that were holding it together like a barn, were milled, right? So they were, 1820s wood, oak, and maple, and we sliced it up, and it was like more like a veneer of this. The structural stuff was steel and real, architecture. What do they call that stuff? Manufactured beams, where it's like they put laminate together, and it's like 20 times stronger. It's like lots of slices of plywood glued together to make a beam, which is a zillion times stronger than steel. And then we covered it with this, 1812. It looked amazing, right? And we were all ready to do this, and then the big Shaving and Salon collapse happened, and that's when we had everything ready. Oh, everybody else went bankrupt, so we bought up everything. I bought up a excavating company, and the black guys who worked in it, I said, "It's now yours. You've been doing all the work. This stupid rich guy who ran it into the ground, it's now yours. You just pay me, right? Instead of the bank, I'm not trying. Just do this work, and that will be paying me, right? They don't have to come up with any cash, right? A plumber and a bunch of these carpenters who were amazing. They when times were good, they were building and making lots of money. Then they were doing a lot of booze, a lot of coke, a lot of this, a lot of that. They ended up in jail. They couldn't get a job. Then the crash happened. I had them all, right? And I had them sleeping on the site so they wouldn't go up and get in trouble. And so I was right at hitting the prime, and I'd already renovated 12 buildings. And my partner, my father, I knew he wasn't my partner because he did the same thing to my brothers and sisters in the other businesses, and he wanted his whole thing was control, right? Because of his fear, right? And so I was doing all this stuff. He had no idea what the frick I was doing, but in the depression, probably one of America's worst depressions, the savings and loan collapse, we were making $46,000 a month on rents, right? On buildings that I bought for nothing because they had were in bad neighborhoods and burnt up and shit like that. But they were structurally still good and had good roofs. If they had a good roof, I bought it. Right? And they were right in neighborhoods where one block over there is where all the rich people was. 2 blocks over there is where all the hood was. And it was all moving over the hood, right? And I bought this defunct shopping center for $32,000, right? It had 20 shops, right? They're all boarded up. Within a year, they were all opened up, restaurants, because there was no restaurants in this town in Sayville. And there's one really good Italian restaurant kind of out of town, but there was nothing in town, right? Mink stole guy, jeweler, really rich people kind of stuff, right? And that one thing, $42,000 rent. Right? Investment, $68,000. And we were getting 42 every friggin' month. And my dad just pulled the plug because he wasn't, he was president and he was in charge, and but I could sign the checks, I could buy stuff, I could do stuff, right? I didn't have to go to daddy, right? I just kept doing it, right? And then I wouldn't get upset. He would get upset. And one day he just pulled the plug, and I knew he would. And I knew our lawyer, who was a real estate lawyer, he kept saying, "What a genius I was! I wish you were my son." And what did he do? My father wanted to dump everything, so this guy offered him like, yeah, 4 times what my father had into it. My father had probably 200 grand into it, so he gave him 800 grand. That got me $50 million in 5 years later. That's my dad. But I knew he was going to do it. I had all other kind of things going on, so I just walked away. And my brother, spat on my father's grave, you name it, not me. I actually went back about 10 years later and took care of my parents for the next 28 years. That's how you be a good person. And I didn't get any money out of it. What I did get out of it was 28 years of having a good time with my parents. Right? Well, I'm ready to move to Galway. Yeah, baby, what have I been telling you? Live in a castle. Yeah, yes, exactly. And you got a guy right here, your own guide. You guys just need to get me a birth certificate and a passport, and I'll come along. Let's see, Chris Dragon Castle. Yes, it's in Galway. Yep. hmm So anyway, so that's where it's at. To be or not to be. That is the question. To be a good person, conscious intent I am. Does it rain a lot? Not on the West Coast, right? West Coast. West Coast is like Florida, at least when I lived there. Galway. Yep. The Galway races. That's what I was trying to think of the other day. So that's kind of it. How much battery do I have left? Well, another 10 minutes. Yeah. Jamie and Fish, you guys should share. I mean, Jamie, Fish, your email addresses are right there on the chat. Get them, start chatting. That's it. Destroy the place. Kids making a ruckus over there. You need a passport. Yeah, I do need a passport. I let that. John Birmingham basically took all of my ID. He wants to be me, so staying there, and then he threw me out. And I left a bunch of stuff in the room I was staying in a nice little box covered up with clothes. Came back. A lot of Dragon had made a bunch of thumb drives from my shows, and those were going pictures of my grandparents getting married, pictures of my mother's parents getting married, my birth certificate, my passport, a marriage certificate of me and Donna, photos of me getting married in London with Donna, pictures of us getting me. He throws me out. I come back about a month later, and I said, "John, what happened?" I didn't take it. Okay. I thought he would give it back, but he actually put it on the internet and said it was his family. So he's got a great enough family. He doesn't need to ad hoc take one from me. But these are all representations of what's the human race does, and I just kind of put it in front of your face to see. Hey, take a look. Right? The other side of the coin is I've already traveled the world. Right? I've already been in all those places. Right? I'd love to go there with you guys. That's a whole other story. But basically, I'm here. I'm out there here in the middle of nowhere, and I, one person at a time, manifest God's unconditional love. Right? And that's by listening to people's stories, hearing what they have to say. Because most people can never express themselves. Right? Let's see how much time. Yeah, we're getting close. So get your emails together, guys. Again, get more people to watch for sure. Yep. Done luck, and they complain. Now, there's a difference between definition, expression, explanation, and complaining. And complaining, if you're using it to vent so you don't hold it inside yourself, then it's okay. If that's all you talk about, well, that's a different story. So, Donegal. How about Donegal? How close are you to Donegal? Dundalk. Quite a lot more with dessert. I tried to call you the other day, Fish, a couple of times. If I'm not out and about, then I can only call you when I have a bar up there in the deep green. But you guys should come and visit me, stick me in the suitcase, and Shanghai me into Ireland, or take my writings and show it to the National Cultural Irish Board and say that this guy needs to be teaching at Trinity. Right? I should. It would be the full circle. Anyway, it's 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 2 seconds, and we have all 4 minutes left of battery. So I'm going to get off this channel here because I never like hanging the show up on a dead battery. So, okay, gang, I will talk to you tomorrow probably. Okay. Jamie, it's probably about, 10 o'clock, and your time, Fish, it's about 4. Okay. I'll talk to you guys later. Love you.